I am really excited to be sharing these nature-inspired thrift store makeovers. I'd like to welcome you all to CreArtive by Nature DIY and Decor. My name is Donna. So I found this really unique shaped wood bowl at the thrift store. It was $2.50 and I knew I wanted to try and do some paint stripper on this. So I found this one at my local hardware store. People will use Citrusolve as well. This one is environmentally safe, so I was really excited to give it a try. So I am using gloves for this. You don't have to, just follow the manufacturer's instructions for whatever product you use. So I'm going to add a coat onto the surface, and I'm going to start with the inner portion, as you can see here, and I'm just using a paintbrush to apply the gel all over the surface. Next, you're going to use some cling wrap, and that will help to keep everything nice and moist. It stays activated as long as it is wet. So that's why they recommend using plastic wrap. I've seen people use plastic wrap for Citrusolve as well. So again, I'm going to continue to use my rubber gloves, and then using a scraping tool, I'm going to see if it is ready to be removed. Now, this is the first time I have ever done this before, and it worked, but I didn't apply enough of the product, so it didn't lift up everywhere, and it was a really thin coat of varnish as well. So I decided to go back over the piece with this product again, and I allow it to sit for about another 15 minutes. The first go around, I allowed it to sit for 30 minutes. As you can see, I added a lot more of the product this time, and I used my plastic wrap again, and it worked this time. I'll show you right here. You can see how much of the product lifts off. There's definitely some color to the gel this time, whereas before there wasn't really. So I am so happy with how this is working. So now I'm just going to use my scraping tool along with a sponge that's got a bit of an abrasive side to it, and I am going to work the varnish off of this piece. It actually went really, really well. So my product did have a little bit of an odor, so I have a really well ventilated room. I've seen some people do this outside as well. Again, just follow your manufacturer's instructions. Here I'm just using the sponge to continue to lift some of the product up. And then to deactivate it, I took it to my laundry room sink and rinsed it all off. And I again used the scrub brush. I allowed it to dry well, and you can see how well it turned out. Isn't that amazing? So I haven't done the backside because I wanted to show you the difference, and it was so, so cool. So any of the spots that I missed, I just took a sanding block and just scrubbed that off. It worked really well. And then I continued to do the other side. Here's the completed bowl, and I'm so happy. I just left it nice and raw. I like that look. And now I'm going to decorate this. So I'm using some preserved reindeer moss, some succulents that I picked up at Dollar Tree and a store called Daiso. And I also am going to be using some foraged branches that have this beautiful lichen in it. So I'm going to start off by filling my bowl with the reindeer moss, and you can use anything that you have on hand. So I'm really excited to share with you that this is actually a collaboration with a group of amazingly talented ladies here on YouTube. We're all doing thrift store makeovers. I will have a playlist link in the description box as well as in the comments section for your convenience. Please do check it out. You will not be disappointed. So as you can see here, I am pulling off the stems and cutting them down off of the succulents from Dollar Tree. It just made it easier to tuck these into the moss like I am showing you right here. Another option would be to add some beautiful florals, or you could just use some rocks. Again, whatever you have in your stash. I love Dollar Tree succulents, and this cute little one is actually from Daiso. So once you have those in place, you can add any other embellishments. As you can see, I am using these beautiful branches that I had foraged from the forest. If you've been following me for a while, you know how much I love to add that touch of a nature that I love to go and collect. So I just tuck these in amongst the moss as well. And I just think it just brings everything together so nicely. So I must say, this project turned out better than I had hoped. I absolutely love this. It's kind of got a bit more of a modern look, but yet has that down-to-earth look by adding the branches, and I love that. So I really enjoyed doing this. I am definitely going to do wood stripping again in the future. So for this next project, I am redoing this gold wood picture frame. I picked it up on sale for $2.50. Now, the gold does not go with our house, so I am going to be covering it up and doing an antique look to this. I am going to cover up the slick gold paint with gesso. Gesso is a primer, so use whatever you have on hand for a primer. It works really well on a slick surface. I just find that when you do this, it helps craft paint to adhere better to these slick surfaces. So I'm going to also add just a little bit to the inside of the frame right here. And now I'm going to be applying some burnt umber paint. So I started off with the paint as is, but it wasn't dark enough for my liking. So I went ahead and mixed in a little bit of black paint to darken this brown color. So I am going to apply the paint all over, getting right into all the little grooves of this picture frame. You can see the difference of the paint color there. It's so much better. I'm so much happier with that. But of course, do these projects in whatever color you like. You might even just like the gold frame as is. It's totally up to you. I encourage you to do whatever suits your decor. So I'm going to just continue to add this craft paint, and as you can see, it's stuck really well to that gesso. So now I am going to go in and add this warm cream craft paint. I really like the look of the brown paint showing through, so I'm not going to cover up the entire piece. As you can see here, you can see how the brown paint is kind of coming up and through in areas. Now, if you want more of the brown paint to show through, then I definitely encourage you to try doing dry brushing instead. But I didn't want the brown to be the main feature at this point. So for my technique, I am going to just continue to cover it up. I'm just showing here what a dry brush would look like, and it does look pretty cool. I do really like that, but I wanted to cover up more of the brown. So on the sides, I am just going to cover this right up, and then you'll see in a little while what I will do next. So some of the areas were streaking, so I just went ahead and added just a little bit more of my warm cream color. You can see here it looks pretty streaky, and I didn't quite want that look, so I'll just cover that up and then I'll allow it to dry well. So once that's dry, I decided to go over it with some Mod Podge matte acrylic clear spray. Now I wanted the matte, not the glossy. Once that has dried, now I'm going to go over it with my favorite gel stain, and it is the Walnut, put out by DecoArt. And I'm using a stiff bristle brush and applying it into all those little grooves you can see there, and then I'm taking a rag and lifting off the excess. Now this will alter the color of your frame and give it more of an earthy look. If you don't want that look, then don't do this step. I would encourage you just to keep it as is, but I love that rustic kind of grungy look of getting the stain into all those crevices on this frame. It's something I do quite often, and I really do think it looks so beautiful on a piece like this. So you can see the difference here. I left one little section to the left plain, and I'm going to finish that off, and you can see the difference between that section and the rest. Now I'm going to continue to add this stain, and then I'm going to come back in and pull up a little bit more of the stain, and you'll see why here in a moment. So I wanted, again, a bit more of the cream paint to show. So I found that the stain was just a little bit too much in just a few areas. So I used some water on a rag, and I'm just wiping off some of the gel stain. All of this is acrylic based, so it works with water really well. Okay, I know you're probably thinking, Donna, there are so many steps. Yes, there are, but I am really liking the way this is looking. So if you don't want to do all these steps, then please, by all means, just paint the piece the way you would like it. I highlighted some of the areas with a bit more cream paint, as you saw before. And now I am going in and I am adding some gel stain to the sides, but I'm also applying it with a bit of water just so there's not too much of the stain on the sides. So I allowed that all to dry, and I gave it a coat of my clear acrylic matte spray again and allowed that to dry. Okay, so as you can see, I left the interior rim of my frame dark. I wanted to create a bit of like a shadow look. And now I'm adding some branches to the interior. You could, by all means, add a photo or some type of artwork within this, but I wanted to create something that was, of course, nature inspired. So I am going to be filling the inside of my piece with some foraged branches. So I am just going to be crisscrossing these branches across each other inside this frame, and I'm applying these with some hot glue. Just cut them down to size to suit your needs. As you can see, some of these branches have some beautiful lichen on them. Like this is a beautiful golden yellow color, and then there was just some white lichen as well. I like to use a mix of branches. I just think it creates a bit more of a natural look. So I'm just going to continue to cut down my branches and put them into place using my hot glue gun. And I end up pulling a lot of the glue strings off just with my hand. But you could go back in and use a blow dryer to melt some of those glue strings as well. I'm loving how this is looking so far, and this isn't even the front side, so let me know what you think. This is seriously such a fun piece. I am really liking it. So this is great. I love it, but I wanted to add just one more really beautiful touch. I had these paper butterflies in my stash from my local dollar store. I have seen them at Dollar Tree as well. I wanted to create a bit of dimension, so I'm folding the wings along the body of one of these butterflies, and then I'm going to glue the two pieces together. So doing this, you'll see how much more dimension you get. Isn't it cool? I just think these are so beautiful. Another option would be to use some florals as well as a beautiful bird, or you could even put a nest on here, whatever you'd like. So I'm trying to figure out the top and bottom of my frame, and then I'm going to be applying the hanging hardware on the back side. So I'm just going to be using this sawtooth hanger here. I figured this is probably a nice sturdy hook to use for this piece, and this is the hook that I'm going to be using on my wall. I won't be attaching it to my wall just yet. I'm going to do that later on because I'm not sure where I want to put it in my home yet. So I'm just measuring here the center of my frame so I know exactly where to place my sawtooth hanger. So I'm just going to find the center mark, and this frame is approximately 16.5 inches wide. So I knew I needed to mark 8 1/4. So I'm just going to place my sawtooth hook on the back, and I'm just marking the hole so I know exactly where I need to put it, because sometimes I forget. So this is just a little tip that I have learned to do. I bend my hook that will be going on the wall, and then I find that it sits flatter against the wall, but sometimes there's still a bit of unevenness. So I am using these little felt pads that are about the same thickness as when the two hooks are together, as you can see, and that will help to hang your piece on the wall and it will lay flatter. It's just a little thing I like to do. If you have any other tips, feel free to leave those down below. So I figured out the placement for my butterfly, and now once I figured out the points where it will attach, I used some hot glue, press that into place, and now it's ready to be put on display. I am absolutely in love with this piece. I still haven't found a home for it, but I am going to make sure it's in a great place because I think this is gorgeous. I am so thrilled with how this turned out. So as always, I would love to know what you thought by leaving me a comment down below. I want to thank all the ladies for joining me on this collaboration. Don't forget to check out the playlist in the description as well as the comment section. And I want to thank all of you for joining me today. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.